Inspire Talks. Om Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. We have been discussing Inspire Talks that Swamiji had delivered to his disciples at Thousand Island Parks. And this particular talk that we are discussing was on 26th June. It was a Wednesday. Just a second. Swamiji here is talking about how to be an achiever. In today's world, today's age, everyone wants to be an achiever. You see, in earlier times, if you read these history books, you will find that sometimes someone, maybe in a century, wanted to be an achiever. For example, Alexander the Great, he wanted to be an achiever. He went out to conquer the world. This problem of self-assertion, where you want to be a great achiever, you want to be recognized by others, was not a very popular idea. In India also we find that the Brahmins who maintained the Vedas, they practically effaced themselves from the public memory. They dedicated themselves to the learning of the Vedas and doing tapasya, and they were never to be visible. And Swamiji also mentions how the great sages, they stay away from the public glare, lost in deep meditation, and they are the greatest workers and they are the greatest benefactors of this world. Unfortunately, in today's media age, the cyber age, where information has become so important and unfortunately rampant, that somewhere we have lost the art of acquiring wisdom. Information and wisdom, they are eternal enemies. The more information you have, less wisdom you will have, and vice versa. So Swamiji here is talking about how to be an achiever, but not in the sense that we normally understand, but the way it should be. And the talk had begun with, our best work is done, our greatest influence is extended when we are without thought of self. And Swamiji is continuing with this idea. And some 3 weeks ago, we had stopped this talk. Today, we begin with, the Lord has hidden himself best, and his work is best. So, he who hides himself best accomplishes most. Conquer yourself, and the whole universe is yours. It's a very, very interesting statement, because normally, if you read motivational books, even if you read scriptures, you don't come across such sentences. And there's something very unique about Swamiji, that the kind of sentences that we come across is phenomenal. Here I take classes on, say, Gita and the Upanishads and Mahabharata and Ramayana and the Puranas. In spite of going through all these scriptures, I have rarely come across such sentences. Now, what Swamiji is talking about is spiritual truths. Now, we naturally should not expect any sage, and for that matter, any scripture, whatever that scripture be, to contain every wisdom of the universe, because God is infinite, his creation is infinite, this universe is infinite, and the wisdom which is there in this universe is infinite. So naturally, it's impossible for any book. For example, even Swamiji says that, well, what I have given you is enough for the next 1500 years. What Swamiji meant was, well, newer talents will come, more sages will come, and they will come up with newer ideas. The fundamental truth will never change. God alone exists, and that Atman alone is Brahman, that I am divine, you are divine. This truth is not going to change. But the way to approach it and the ways to implement that will always remain infinite. So you cannot say that here it ends. Now we find that there are people who follow different scriptures. Even in India, you find there are some sects who say that their God is the ultimate God and their book is the ultimate book. And there cannot be a more preposterous idea than that. If God is infinite, you cannot say that he will stay confined in the words of one sage or in one particular book. What Swamiji is saying here is that God created this universe and he has left this universe to bloom on its own. And we do not find the signature of God anywhere other than the words of the sages. For example, Sri Ramakrishna talks about how God has created this universe. Now, unless we find these words from these sages, whether it be Jesus or Buddha or whosoever that be, there is no way to find the signature of God in this universe. The conclusions, this way or that, will always be contradictory. For example, see, today I read Roger Penrose, he got Nobel Prize in Physics. And he is talking about the cyclic presence of the universe. And he has worked on the ideas given by, say, Einstein and Stephen Hawking. They themselves believed in single origin of the universe. Einstein, he was not really a practicing Jew, but he was a Jew, he was a born Jew. And his ideas of the universe and about God and everything came from the Old Testament, the Bible. Not the New Testament, but the Old Testament. And God created the universe. And God created the universe, so it is one-time affair. Then how come Roger Penrose, who has built his theories based on, say, Einstein and Stephen Hawking, has come up with something different? Because he ultimately, they do not know. No one knows. These are mere words. Now, when sages are talking about, they have experienced something. They have seen the truth. They know the truth. We are not willing to accept that because our minds are not ready. So anyway, the bottom line is that signature of God is missing from this universe. And this is what Swamiji says. The Lord has hidden himself best. And if you want to be great, be with the great, emulate the greats. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be a great writer, then read books by great writers. And if there are some great writers present, you go, meet them, interact with them, learn from them, emulate them. If you want to be a great scientist, that exactly is what you have to do. If you want to make wealth, you have to follow the lives of, say, likes of Bill Gates. In whatever field you want to grow, you need to find out who are the greats of that field. And then you know more and more about him, and you try to emulate. Now, you want to be the greatest of achiever. Who is the greatest achiever in this world, in this universe? God is. And how does God work? By not living his signature. He has hidden himself best. And his work is best. There cannot be a better creation. Because the scriptures describe him as that he wished and there was creation. Bible says, let there be light, and there was light. There was this universe. It's the best creation. We may have complaints with this existence because we have our own demands, we have our own ideas, and we have our own selfishness. But if you have some ideas about physics, and if you read something about the physical constants, you'll be surprised that slightest this side or that side, if the constant, say gravitational constant, had been slightly this side or that side, the universe could not have existed. And that's why there was a time Scientists said that God is the great watchmaker. The way a good watchmaker in earlier times used to make precision watches, just like that, God has set this universe in motion in perfect precision. So now, if you really want to be an achiever, you have to be like God. And what's that? So he who hides himself best accomplishes best. You know, I have I have many great friends. One of them is Mr. Ajay Nayak. He just retired from the Indian Administrative Service, and he did some great job, and we were together. And once he was telling that IAS also stands for Indian Anonymous Service. You have to be anonymous. If you really want to serve the country, it's not about administration. It's about being anonymous. You need to be anonymous. And all the great works, see, for example, if you look at the Ramakrishna Mission, all those people who have done the great works in Ramakrishna Mission and have made coming up of some very successful centers, they have stayed extremely anonymous. Swami Vivekananda repeatedly wrote to his brother disciples and to his disciples, who were the founding fathers of the Ramakrishna Mission, to completely stay away from media, completely stay away. And he says, when relief work was being done, he says, no paper blazoning. You have to remain anonymous. If you really want to do great work, stay anonymous. Don't project yourself. Because if you project yourself, your strength will go away. The power that is within you will get obstructed. Why? We shall see. So he says, conquer yourself and the whole universe is yours. See, we are always struggling to gain some wealth, some money, and we are struggling to get the affection of this person, that person. Worse, we want recognition. I have some friends who are constantly struggling to get me recognized. Oh, what will I do with recognition? I have a few years left in this world. I'll soon be dead, maybe in a few years. And what will I do with that name? So there is a very interesting story about Richard Feynman. He had gone with a great scientist. I'm just forgetting his name because I had read this episode long ago. He had gone to Japan. And Richard Feynman, he was a very interesting character. He always tried to stay in limelight and he always tried to seek popularity. And he is one of the few scientists who wrote certain memoirs like Surely You Are Joking, Mr. Feynman. There he narrates an incident. There was a great physicist with him, and there was a phone call from Time magazine from America. And in those days, this transcontinental phone calls was unbelievable. It would be so expensive. They wanted an interview of that physicist. And Feynman was young. He was so excited that he told that physicist later, sir, there was a phone call and they will be calling you again in the evening. The physicist says, I'm not interested. Why? He famously says, publicity is a harlot, is a fallen woman. Publicity. It keeps running after people who are in the limelight. Harlot is not a good word. It's a pretty foul word. In earlier times, nowadays, of course, this culture is not there, but harlots, they would run after people who have money. They would be seeking customers who have money. Now the term TRP, etc. has come. Actually, I don't understand much of this because I don't watch television. I've never watched television practically in my life. I really don't understand what little I read on news. From that, I get all this information. Little bit, because I cannot relate. They are running after people who are in the limelight for whatever reason, good or bad. Generally bad. They don't run after good people. If somebody has done something really good, that news will not stay, because honeybees run after a flower, and an ordinary fly runs after dirt. Flies will never suck out anything from the flower. Flies love to sit on festering wounds. We are like flies. We are not like honeybees. The Sanskrit term for that is makshika vritti, madhukara vritti. Makshika vritti. Like a fly. Like a fly, we are seeking out the rotten things. Don't be a makshika. Be a honeybee. And much later, when Richard Feynman himself got the Nobel Prize in physics, he was informed and he said, I am not interested. And then his friends immediately called him and said, why do you want to refuse? He says, because there will be publicity. And they said, if you don't accept, there will be more publicity. So then he accepted. Now, see what happens if you really want to do great work. You have to stay away from publicity. And definitely, under no condition, you should be seeking publicity. If you are going for publicity, you are going against anonymity. The secret of success lies in anonymity, not in publicity. You will see that those bureaucrats, IAS officers, IPS officers, or ministers who are continuously in limelight, those who are in paper and they are on television, you will soon find that something wrong has come out of their life, which is not really acceptable. Because publicity takes away your inner energies. We don't realize it. We lose our own greater good because we want quick success. Quick success. I always tell my friends who have kids, make sure that your child does not become topper at least up to class 8, 9. Once the kid is in the race of becoming a topper, his or her energies will be completely expended in that. And there is a limit to the vertical success, but there is no limit to horizontal success. The first formative years of, say, up to 14, 15 years is very important for horizontal learning. Vertically, how much you can get? 100 out of 100, maybe in every subject, and there it ends. But there is no end to horizontal learning. If you stay away from the publicity, from the limelight, if you stop the craving of being the topper, and if you are satisfied with, say, 98, 99, within 4 or 5 years, you will become unbeatable. Throughout your life, you will be unbeatable. But people do not have that patience. They want quick success. And then when failure hits them, they don't know what to do. In the state of sattva, and conquer yourself and the whole universe is yours. See, these prophets, they always stay away from limelight. We don't even know who the sages were who gave us the wisdom of Upanishads. In Ishavasya Upanishad, that is one of the most popular Upanishads, and one of the first Upanishads which is usually memorized because it has only 18 mantras. No one knows who gave that. The teacher who is teaching it to the disciple says, well, this is what we have heard from our teachers. And no one knows where from that tradition has come. And this is why they say that it has all come from God. If there is one religion, absolutely impersonal religion, which was not founded in time or in particular space, if you want to be something universal, it has to be impersonal. It's a very simple logic. It's not a rocket science. It's very simple. Do you want a universal religion? Well, then it has to be impersonal. If you want it to go to everybody else, it has to be impersonal. And the only impersonal religion comes from the Upanishads. In the Vedic mantras also, there are mention of the sages whose family or family maintained that particular hymn. But the Upanishads we don't find. One can guess that probably it was there because they have some Vedic traditions, but no one really knows. And these are the real. Actually, India has this very strong tradition of being anonymous and being impersonal. Even the Puranas, those who compose those Puranas, they passed off their creations in the name of Vyasa, and Vyasa became a generic name. If you really want to be a conqueror, and if you believe what Roger Penrose says, because I don't believe much in these scientists because they say something today and they will change their views tomorrow. But since he has given an idea which is acceptable to us, and the idea with which we have been living since thousands of years, that it's all cyclic creation. It's not cyclic creation only about the matter. The cyclic creation is about the Atman too. Atman, by Atman I mean Jivatman. Atman, when it identifies itself with mind, becomes Jivatman. That also has a cyclic existence. So it will continue to be. Your death, your death is not effacement. Your death only means that you will again be born till the time that you attain self knowledge. Once you attain self knowledge, you become universal, you become impersonal, and that is when your power really blooms. Till then, more you hide yourself, more you stay away from the limelight, more power will come out of you. Try to get this award, try to get this recognition, try to get this, and your power will be dissipated continuously. If you really want to conquer the world, conquer yourself. And that's what we find that persons like Alexander the Great. What is Greek today? Finished. Where is Julius Caesar? What is Rome today? Nothing. Famous for Italy is now famous for its mafia only. Where is Genghis Khan's empire? Nothing. All gone to dust. And where are the wisdom of the sages today? Present throughout India and seeping very slowly in the West too. If you really want to conquer the world, conquer yourself. He says, in the state of sattva, we see the very nature of things. We go beyond the senses and beyond reason. We have been discussing the three states of mind, three states of existence of everything. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva is where light is the way light is. Rajas is where it is tinged with activity, with kinetic power. Tamas is when the whole thing becomes inert. That is darkness. So there is some kind of darkness, and in Rajas there is this idea and there is this struggle of acquiring something. In Sattva, things are the way they are. One big problem in this world, one big problem in our own existence is that we don't see things the way they are. Good is not good for us. Bad is not bad for us. Good is colored. For example, if we don't like somebody and he has some really good qualities, we'll find some fault with that person. There's a topper, we say, he cheated in the exam, so he's top. Somebody has struggled very hard to acquire wealth. People will say that, well, he acquired wealth through dubious means. We don't like to see good as good. We add something bad to it. Similarly, if we have some friends who has some bad qualities, there we put certain conditions to make it look good. And when it comes to ourselves, there we become absolutely hopeless. Reality becomes completely tinged. See, to give you an example, now, of course, every one of you knows that if you put on your, if you put on, say, green glasses, you will see the world as green. And if you put on red, you will see red. I myself had cataract in my eyes, and I was seeing things pretty yellow. Now we have brahmacharis in white dress. I used to wonder how come they maintain, how come their dress is so yellowish and not so clean. Now I had my cataract operation, everything is normal, and I'm seeing everything as white and bright. And now I see that their dresses are sparkling white. The problem was not with their dress, the problem was with my eyes. Problem is not with the world, problem is not with the reality. Problem is with my own mind. My own mind is completely immersed in tamas and rajas, sometimes in sattva. And that's why we don't see things the way they are. In fact, other than sages and other than great persons, people cannot see things the way they are. Now, once you are in sattva and you go to the deeper levels of sattva, you go beyond the senses. It's the senses that make your mind tainted. It's the senses, it's your desires. And desires are born, desires are worked out by the senses. It's the sense gratification, is the desire of our senses that color the mind. And the helpless mind instructs the organs to do exactly what the senses are asking us to do. My eyes, my eyes want to see something good, someone whom I love. It taints my mind. And the mind, even though it knows it's not the right thing to do, it will tell my legs to carry the weight of my body, because with that only can move the senses to the person whom I like. Once you are established in Sattva, once you become noble, once you can see good as good, once you can see things the way they are, you go beyond this. You go beyond senses. Unless you go beyond senses, you cannot be sattvic. And once you are sattvic, you go beyond senses. See, there is no trick in it. The journey begins with self control, and slowly, slowly, that self control becomes a habit. And then the passing thoughts and the passing sights, they don't disturb you. The adamantine wall that shuts us in is egoism. Those of you who might have been listening to our Rajyog talks, which we deliver on Tuesdays, there you will see the process of creation is described as avidya smita raga dvesh abhinivesh, ignorance. We have forgotten what our true nature is. And once we forget what our true nature is, the junction of pure consciousness and pure energy is comes into existence. And this junction where consciousness meets energy is known as asmita, ego. And this ego is present in every individual. Anything that is born, anything that has some form of mind, howsoever rudimentary, it will have the sense of I-ness. And from there comes the desire to enjoy, the desire to move away from that which we don't like, and most importantly, the desire to live. Egoism, the sense of I-ness, the sense that I exist and I alone should be the winner, I alone should be the enjoyer. It darkens our mind to such great extent, that we we shut ourselves within those walls. If you want to imagine that there is bright light outside, there is fresh breeze outside, but you have deliberately shut yourself in a dungeon, and you are constantly complaining of darkness and filth and etc. The squalor that is there, the dirt that is there, It's unbearable for you. But who has asked you to stay there? Just come out. Come out in the open. But no, we won't. Because we can't let go of that ego. We have been living in that dungeon for so long that we feel that this is my true reality. Whatever I may do, I am not going to give this up. If you want to, if you want to enjoy freedom, give up. Give up that dungeon. Egoism is that mental dungeon. And this I-ness manifests within us and, of course, outside us in thousands of ways. I am this, I am that. I want this, I want that. I don't like this, I don't like that. There's just no end to likes and dislikes. And all these likes and dislikes is born of asmita. And asmita itself, that ego itself, is born of ignorance. We are not, we have forgotten our true nature. Because we have forgotten our true nature, our ego is born. And once our ego is born, we have our own likes and dislikes. And because of our likes and dislikes, we are completely shut in the dungeon. We refer everything to ourselves, thinking, I do this, that, and the other. Get rid of this puny I. Kill this diabolism in us. Not I, but thou. Say it, feel it, live it. What's the use of all these talks? We are having all these talks. I don't know about you, but I know about myself. The more I am into this, and because I have to deliver these talks, we are having these classes. I read these lines many times before I come for this class. I think over it. I try to feel. I try to feel those ideas passing through me. And that surely uplifts me. Now when you listen to these talks, the first inputs are going. And once the first inputs are there, you, s- you have to learn to feel it, that these are true. There's one gentleman, he was once talking to me about our class and said, let's see, he said he loved his religion because he was born in it and he knew about it in bits and pieces. Now that he's listening to our talks, he started loving his religion. Why? Because things are becoming clear. Similarly, these noble thoughts, once these ideas start becoming clear, you start feeling it. Oh, yes, these are true. These are true. And from there, you have to live it. What's the use of having a grand idea in your head and not living it? If there is some idea that can give me freedom, because freedom is directly associated with joy. Whatever we want in life is all about joy. If a person who commits suicide, he thinks that, or she thinks that once he or she is dead, he will be out of pain. Joy is opposite of pain. We are constantly seeking joy. And in the world, it comes in the form of pleasure. We want to avoid pain. And those of us who take pain, it is in anticipation of some pleasure. Those who take drug, those have drug in their body through needles and all, it's all painful, but it is in anticipation of some pleasure, some joy. Greatest joy comes from the ultimate freedom, or more freedom you have. So why not feel it? That is what Swamiji says. Get rid of this puny I. Kill this diabolism in us. Not I, but thou. Learn to give up I-ness. Learn to give up this idea of I. I have done it. I am doing it. No, get rid of all this. and let God take over. Does it mean that you give up and God takes over? It's something like your mom asks you to do something you don't do, and then mom will be forced to take that up. No, it's not that way. All along, it is God who is doing it. All along, it's pure consciousness who does everything, and that pure consciousness is God. We think that we are doing it, and because we think we are doing it, there is a covering, and because there is that covering, the whole force, the whole power is not able to come. You have water tap in your house, and if for some reason there is some deposit, some sedimentation there, water will not be flowing out of it fully. You need to clean it. When it comes to us, it's our ego, the puny I. It was favorite term of Swamiji. He often used to say, puny I. Let it go. The whole thing will rush through you. The problem is we think that if we let go of what little I have, I will lose everything. At least try in the areas where it does not matter much with you. Many ask me how I became a monk. Well, I had lived with monks, and after my college, I was at Devghar for some days. And suddenly I felt that sense of freedom. And that sense, that I'm completely free, it never left me. And well, probably I was ready, my mentality was ready, and I went ahead. And after that, there was a lot of drama, family drama, and all, which is very natural. But after that, I was not ready to let go of that freedom. Whatever little suffering I had in my life was when I let go of my freedom. Never let go of freedom. Never, under no condition. Until we give up the world manufactured by the ego, never can we enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus used to talk about entering the kingdom of heaven. First, you have to give up your own self. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if you want thread to be passed through the eye of the needle, not the not the tiniest of shard should be there. If there is even a little sticking out, the thread will not pass through that eye of the needle. Unfortunately, we create this universe. And once we create the universe, we can't let it go. And even if you want that it should go away, the world will not let me go. And some kind of violence has to be applied. There is this famous story about some sadhus who were traveling through a forest. In the morning, they had to leave. Now, one sadhu was not leaving, so others were shouting, "Hey, come away." So he was rolling his blanket. Unfortunately, there was a bear, and that beast caught him in a hug. And he's shouting, "I am not able to take my blanket away." He says, "Give up that blanket." Sadhu says, "But the blanket is not leaving me." Swamiji used to talk about this story. You want to give up that blanket, but the blanket will not, because it's not a blanket, it's a bear. The world is like that. World is just like that. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, know their heart, know their heart. You constructed a pleasure house. Now you can't break it down. It's beyond you to break it down. None ever did, none ever will. If you have that ego, even if you have that ego, even if you have that ego that I am the servant of God, at least that is considered not to be really an ego. But in Vedanta, they say that if you have that idea that I am child of God, I am servant of God, you cannot enter the non-dual state. Of course, devotees will say we don't want, but that exactly is telling the worldly people, when the worldly people say that, well, I don't want religion. I don't want to give up my wife and children and my family. Why should I bother about God? Just like that, these dualists, these dualists, be it Vaishnavite, be it Shaivite, be it this follower, be it that follower, they talk exactly in the same term. I don't want to give it up. Sri Ramakrishna also said the same thing. He was a devotee of Kali and he was with Mother Kali. And when he was taught by Totapuri, he refused to let go of Mother Kali. But of course, Sri Ramakrishna was different, so he could. Slightest of, even little of the thread is sticking out, it cannot enter. Even the least of fineness, it cannot let you enter the kingdom of heaven. I just completed my book Kratu. Now it's publication ready. And in there, Kratu is the protagonist who is traveling from sphere to sphere and time to time since eternity. In that book, eternity is around 8 to 10,000 years ago, because before that the story did not exist. He wants to help his friend, and that thought where he really wants to serve his friend, he is not able to cross over. He cannot, because there is that thought. Even though it's the thought of helping others, you cannot cross over. To give up the world is to forget the ego, to know it not at all, living in the body not of it. It's pretty obvious. When you say that you have to give up the world, it doesn't mean that you need to go to the Himalayas or you need to go to the forest. What you need is to give up your ego. Even the desire to be good at the higher level has to go away. The desire to enjoy has to go away. And the desire to give up, that also has to go away. You have to be completely indifferent, completely, absolutely indifferent. There is magnet. If an iron block moves through it, magnet will attract that. But if gold or lead or whatever it be, copper, if it's moving, magnet will not be attracting it. This example is just to give you an idea that this world is that huge magnet house. You need to change yourself. The world is not going to change. And once you change yourself, nothing is going to attract you, nor anything is going to repel you. You will keep moving indifferent. There is this famous work, Lord of the Rings. There is that ring, it has to be destroyed, because if it falls in the wrong hands, it will bring ruin and destruction in the world. So there is one gentleman in the beginning of the story itself. When these four people go to him, he looks at the ring and kind of gives back. Says he is a very safe person because he will not be using it. He says he is extremely unsafe. He doesn't care for this ring. So he may leave it anywhere and it may be taken away by the wrong people. It's a very interesting thing. Persons who are not interested in something will not keep it safe because for them it has no value. That is the kind of detachment, that is the level of detachment that we need to have. This rascal ego must be obliterated. Bless men when they revile you. See, those who are criticizing you, those who are abusing you, are abusive about you, bless them. because they give you pain. Pain is indeed extremely painful in this world, no doubt about it. When you look from the worldly aspect, if you are looking from the worldly viewpoint, pain is real bad. It scalds you, it burns you down. But if you see from the spiritual aspect,